I'm looking at Mitchell Robinson.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I thought you were going to say quickly. All right, let's move on to the New York Knicks. More coming off of a surprisingly competent season. They went out and mostly just ran it back, but then added Evan Fournier. And as we discussed earlier this offseason, the signing of Kemba Walker kind of tied everything together. Where, for a while it was like, what are the Knicks doing? And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, they actually upgraded pretty significantly. So what should we expect out of Kemba Walker, I think, is the first question we have to tackle here, because we just do not know how much he has left in those knees.
Do you have a coin?
Or an MRI?
Yeah, that might be better. No, again, no clue. Like, we don't know where he's at physically at this point. What we do know is that he's signed to a very favorable contract. Even if it doesn't work out, like, the cap hit is not going to be tremendous. Not this year, not next year. It's something you can survive if it goes completely haywire, is my point.
Yeah.
And what I kind of think will still be with him is the jump shooting. Like, he doesn't have that burst necessarily with the knee. Fine. But the shooting is still rock solid. I mean, he's still a guy who can come in and drain those 2 to 3 triples a night and do so, off the dribble or whatever. Like, it's the athleticism. It's the going from point A to point B, the explosiveness that's probably going to be not there. So that means that in worst case scenario, Kemba becomes like a souped up off ball spot up shooter, which frankly, I don't hate all that much. It's fine. So yeah, even if he doesn't live up to those frankly crazy expectations that some of the very positive New York fans have to him, I think he'll still be a positive asset for them. And if not, it doesn't matter, because then you can pivot into Emmanuel Quickley or Luka Vildosa, for example. Like, you have those other players at your disposal. So again, I realize I'm repeating myself, but it doesn't matter. Like, it's cream at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he's earning less than Derrick Rose over the next year, considerably less than Derrick, like $5 million less per year almost than Derrick Rose. So yeah, it was such a low risk, enormous upside. Like, if he stays healthy, they just got an all-star caliber player at the mid-level exception, effectively.
Right.
Less than the mid-level exception. Like, it's insanely good value. No contract, no player could exceed the value of his contract, other than, like, max guy like Luka is worth twice as much. But no guy who is restricted by how much he could earn could exceed the value of his contract more than Kemba if everything breaks right, he stays healthy. But yes, as you said, if he doesn't, or if he only plays half the games per year, they have Derrick Rose, they have Emmanuel Quickley, they have other options to lean on in the nights that he can't play, and they don't have to now have Elfrid Payton, ceremonial starter, who wastes 20 minutes a game as our starting point guard, who we don't actually get anything productive out of. Like, that 3-man rotation of Kemba, D Rose, Quickley is insanely good. So I think is going to be a source of strength for this Knicks team. Let's talk about Fournier as well.
Yes.
How much of an upgrade is he going to be over Reggie Bullock, who went to leave and signed with the Dallas Mavericks?
Yeah, offensively tremendous. Defensively, he's actually a downgrade from Bullock, but not to the point where I think people are overstating Fournier's defensive struggles. I think there is that whole entire, he's from Europe and he's white mentality over it, so he can't be a good defender, which has really stuck with him for the vast majority of his career. And while I absolutely agree he's not a high-level defender at all, he's a little bit better than people give him credit for. Like, he is passable. I think you used that term earlier for someone else. Like, so defensively, I'm not super concerned about it. Offensively, however, is where he shines. He's a shooter. He didn't really get to show a whole lot in Boston because of the COVID situation. Like, he got COVID and it was bad. I mean, he lost, I think it was 20 pounds, including 10 pounds of muscle. I read a report saying, which was like insane. 10 pounds of muscle. But yeah, I COVID can hit so differently, right? And I think for him to have a bounce back year, it's going to be so important for him. Just to come in feeling healthy, being able to get his rhythm back, because he's a rhythm shooter. He's a guy who really feeds off of the attention of others. And with Rose, Randall, Walker, Barrett there, I assume he's basically just going to feed off of the attention of those guys, spotting up from mid-range, cutting to the basket, finding himself wide open for a little 15-foot pop right there. I mean, it's going to be one of those situations where he's not going to be asked to create as much as he was in Orlando, for example. So he's going to have a rather significant injection of offensive efficiency, I think. I wouldn't even be surprised if Fournier becomes one of the most efficient perimeter shooters in the NBA next season, and like in the plus 60% true shooting percentage area.
Yeah, I mean, he shot a career high 41.3% from deep last year, despite the COVID issues.
Right.
And, 16 games in Boston, so very small sample size, but 46.3 from deep. So that's kind of an indication of what is possible. In Orlando, he just wasn't surrounded by that much talent who commanded defensive attention. But when you're playing, as you mentioned, you're playing next to a Kemba Walker and RJ Barrett, Julius Randle, he's the fourth man in that pecking order, probably. Yep. So he should have, he's going to have the weakest perimeter defender, most likely, on him. Looked really good in the Olympics too. So, in case you were worried about like any lingering effects of COVID, knock on wood, hopefully he's fine moving forward. But yeah, I think he's, that was the big problem with the Knicks last year, right? Their defense was Tibbsian, as always. They were third in the league in defensive rating. Offense just sputtered and died sometimes, especially in that first round loss to the Hawks, where it's like if they couldn't rely on Julius Randle and RJ Barrett, they didn't have a ton of other good options. Like Rose and Quickly were their other best weapons. Now you add a Fournier, a Kemba to those guys, and I think they're going to be much closer to above league average than below. Like I don't know if they're going to field a top 5, top 10 offense, but like they're not going to be in the bottom 10 either.
No, I would be very surprised. So I raised this question to you before we started recording, as we did our little pre-work here. There is a tips factor that we need to take into account. Usually Tips kind of burns out, at least after his Chicago stint, with teams, by, second, third year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are we at that point with him where you have to be concerned about that? Or do you think this situation in New York is tailored differently to the point where you can actually expect Tips to have some longevity? Yeah,
I mean, I think the results last year are encouraging. I think the burnout factor is often because he just plays his guys an ungodly number of minutes. And we saw that last year with Julius Randle, played almost 38 minutes per game in the regular season, which is just
Barrett
insane.
Too, right?
Barrett was at 34.9. So on the higher end, but not like, 37.6 in the regular season is just some 2000 nonsense like that. No one should be playing that much during the regular season. I'm hoping that the addition of Walker and Fournier will allow him to lean less on those guys and like dial back their minutes to a reasonable 32, 33, 34. The problem for the Knicks is that they still, the 3 and the 4 spots are where they are weakest behind Barrett and Randle. Like unless Knox finally has his breakout year, which not banking on that. Like Taj Gibson's more of a center than he is a power forward at this point. Obi Toppin showed some flashes late last year, so I think he probably will get more minutes in relief of Randle. And again, if you don't have to rely on Randle as much offensively because you have these other threats, you could play him for a few less minutes per game and have Toppin in there and lean on Walker or lean on Fournier when he's out. But yeah, the 3 spot stands out as a potential weakness. So I could see, Barrett and Fournier having to play. I would guess all of these guys are going to be in the low 30s at the very least. So it's something to monitor for sure, but I'm not super concerned about it yet, just because they had so much success last year. Like, I think they're all going to be riding the high of, like, this Knicks team absolutely sucked for, the last 6 years. And all of a sudden we got them back into the playoffs. And, like, as the 4 seed, they need to go through some, like, if they have a rougher than expected season this year, then I think next year is when we could really start to see the Tibbs fatigue kicking in.
Right. Yeah, I think what the Knicks did roster-wise was solid, but I do think they need one final, maybe 2 pieces still to really round out everything. Mm-hmm. Maybe that comes from within, like you just brought him up in Obi Toppin. Like, if Obi Toppin comes in and is the player that we expected him to be last year, that takes care of a lot of depth issues right off the bat. Now, I don't expect Kevin Knox to come in and be better than, well, he was never good. But at the very least, you have a very dependable trio in Barrett, Fournier, and Alec Burks at the 2 to 3 spot. So I think that's handled. The point guard spot is absolutely loaded, so no issues there in terms of depth. Center-wise, you're also kind of fine with Mitchell Robinson and Nerlens Noel. Like, those 2 guys should get every minute possible.
Yep.
And then it's like that, but you're right. That final bit is the backup 4, someone who can also play at just a little bit more of a 5. Theoretically, a younger Taj Gibson would have been perfect, but Taj right now is like 36, so you just don't know how long you can expect him to be good. So yeah, it's really, this is the year of Obi Toppin for their depth purposes. Like, if he rounds out and becomes good, then this team goes legit, 9 or 10 deep in the rotation, if not more, actually, when I think about it. Yeah, 10 at least. Yeah.
And RJ Barrett is the one I'm keeping my eye on. Like, Julius Randle had the breakout year last year. RJ Barrett improved from year 1 to year 2, but I feel like this is the year he takes a bigger leap forward because, again, like, having a Kemba and having a Fournier there's just not going to be as much defensive attention on him. So I actually looked on FanDuel for most improved player of the year, because I was thinking, I know he's going to violate like all of your rules because he's number 3 overall pick. Yeah, that's true. It's not year 1 to year 2. It's year 2 to year 3, but he is the number 3 overall pick.
Yes.
So he is below 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 21 players. He has the 22nd best odds for most improved player of the year. He is below, among others, Kyle Kuzma, Ben Simmons, Lonzo Ball, Derek White, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Christian Wood, who should not be eligible. If you're in the MIP conversation 3 years in a row, you aren't allowed to be in the MIP conversation.
I would agree with that.
So that's the...
Well, FanDuel just takes into account what I've been seeing. They're like, we don't want second-year guys. And
clearly. Well, Zion's in there, SGA.
Oh, God. Throw me a bone, FanDuel. God.
Kevin Porter is number 2 on the list right now, by the way. So, but he's also not he's year 2 to year 3. So there you go.
Kevin Porter is a legit candidate because he got drafted, 30th?
Yeah.
And he's the year 3 guy? There we go. Yep. This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but pretty much, Michael Porter, Colin Sexton, Jaren Jackson Jr., Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, De'Aaron Fox, Zion Williamson are among the top 8. All of them were lottery picks.
But look, so. I'm not even going to go into the MIP with another Nick. I still don't think that should have gone to Randall last year. I will die on that hill.
Save yourself.
I will die on that hill. And I'm not going to go into more detail, but because I've already been there. So like, if another Nick is in the conversation about MIP, I'm just going to shut up. I don't want it. I don't want it. It's just.
I think Barrett could be in there though. I would not be surprised to see him take a big jump this year. And I think that's going to be the key. Like, the big question hanging over the Knicks is, can they replicate their success from last year? Can they be a safe top 6 seed again? Because the competition in the East between Miami, get to Philly in a second, Atlanta, Boston, Chicago, we talked about last episode. Like, someone is going to end up disappointed with. Someone's going to go into this season thinking they're a top 6 seed and they won't be. But if RJ Barrett takes that leap, like it seems like he's on the precipice of doing, then he might be able to push the Knicks ahead of some of those teams.
You know, I'm actually looking at a different Knick if we're going to be talking about most improved or just improved player. Not that I disagree that RJ Barrett is going to come in better. I think that there's a real likelihood of that happening. I'm looking at Mitchell Robinson.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I thought you were going to say quickly.
No, second year guy, Brian. And of course he's going to get better. I was actually kidding. He is going to get better as well. No, I was actually thinking of Robinson for one reason. Like he's sort of stagnated. He didn't really make major strides over his first 3 years. We know that bigs develop a little bit slower. And he was also very, very immature when he came into the league. You can ask yourself whether he's significantly more mature now or there's still some underlying issues. Fair enough.
Yeah. But
the guy's he is 23 now. Like, I kind of think going into year 4, he has 158 games of experience under his belt now. He's a little bit older. I could see him get better, and not just like moderately better for him going to 8 to 9 points or whatever. I think he could be one of those 14-11 guys maybe, which would be a significant step up. The question is, will he get enough minutes with Nerlens Noel signing that new contract? That I don't know, but I kind of think this could be the year of Mitchell Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, he missed like half the season last year. He played only 31 games as well. So he's kind of an afterthought. But I mean, you know, a year or two ago, you looked at Mitchell Robinson and he looked like one of the highest upside prospects on the Knicks. Like the conversation has changed so much about this team over the last year because of the success that they had, and like Randall and Barrett and, you know, all that good stuff. But yeah, I'm excited to see what Mitchell Robinson has in store this year. He is plus 19,000 in the MIP conversation, tied with Malik Beasley, Josh Jackson, Andrew Wiggins, Zubac, Kyle Anderson, Chetty Osman, and Nick Claxton. So if you want to throw $10 on him, let's make some money.
Oh God, yeah, we should do that. I would do that. I could see but if you really think about it, right? That's the position where there's room for significant improvement. Like, I'm not saying that RJ Barrett and Emmanuel quickly won't get better, because I damn sure think they are. But those positions are already kind of locked. Like you still have Evan Fournier, who's going to need shots. You have Alec Burks, who's going to need shots. So it's like RJ Barrett can't just run wild and take 25 shots per game, for example. Like, he's still going to play within the constructs of a team. The same goes for Emmanuel quickly, where there's a lot of competition at the point guard spot. Mitchell Robinson's only competition is Nerlens Noel, and you know what Nerlens Noel is. He's not a full-time starter. He's a guy who is best backing up that primary position. So maybe he just makes more sense. Mitchell Robinson, that is.
Yeah, it's a good shout. It's kind of
he is as well.
Yeah, like he's the forgotten guy on this team right now. But if he takes that big leap, that's another way to get them locked into that top 6.
Right, because he won't really need a lot of shots. I mean, no. And it's not like RJ Barrett is going to turn into prime Kawhi Leonard defensively from one year to the other, I don't think.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, worth noting if was plus 19,000.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, you and I are going to make a deal right here, right now, and we're going to share it with our audience. You and I are going to put $10 on this.
And then we're going to win $1,900 in a couple months. Let's go.
Let's do it. Absolutely.